right, welcome back. It's a Monday. It is April 21st, and it is our 7th episode of the KNL Sports Huddle. Welcome in. I'm your host, Cage Kiplinger. This is my co-host, Logan Hubert. This is our weekly podcast. If you're new to the channel, we just break down the top stories in the world of sports, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So, how you feeling, my man?
I'm doing great. The weather's starting to turn nice, which means that golf is in the air, baseball's in the air, and of course that means NFL draft season is right around the corner too.
Yeah, big week for golf, really. Masters last week, and then we get another playoff in the RBC Heritage. Justin Thomas finally wins one after 3 years of coming up short. But before we continue on, guys, if you're listening on YouTube, just make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it. We're just trying to grow here. We're basically starting from scratch. If you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and follow us, give us a rating, review. And then we're also on Instagram. If you see any of our posts, we do breaking news. We do, short snippets of each of these videos, so you can see us in a more manageable, short form. But let's get into it. Yeah. So NFL draft. This is our draft preview. It's coming up this week. Big time of the year for the NFL. Always look at the NFL draft a little bit differently than I do the other major league drafts, because you look at baseball, players that get drafted into that, you don't see those guys for another 4 or 5 years. So most of the time you don't know them outside of a Paul Skeens. He became famous at LSU, but outside of that guy, you don't really know about these guys as a casual baseball fan. NBA, the guys that they draft into their draft picks, these guys are like 18, 19 years old, and they can't make an immediate impact at all because they haven't even developed yet. But in the NFL, it's totally different. We've got a draft that the players that you pick can have an immediate impact. Just look at a couple of years ago with the Houston Texans. We had C.J. Stroud. Houston finally gets their quarterback right, and it completely turned around from being the laughingstock of the league. And then last year, you can talk about the Washington Commanders. You have Jaden Daniels, obviously the new coach, new everything there, front office, top to bottom there. Completely turned around their season, became NFC, got to the NFC Championship game. So just wanted to get your thoughts, just overall the quality of this year's draft.
The other thing I'll say about just drafts in general is that the NFL is just always, just here in the last few years, has just done an excellent job marketing it, where people just put it on their calendars like it's here, finally here. And it gives teams hope. The teams that are always towards the bottom, there's always something to cheer for in the draft. Most years, there's a few exceptions when a team wastes a pick or something, but usually not the case. But this draft overall, it's not the greatest draft in recent memory. That's not to say there's definitely some really strong talent here, but like the quarterback class this year, I'm sure we'll talk about these guys a lot, but Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, I would say they're great prospects, but I would not call them elite prospects. Like, we've had elite QB prospects in the past, like Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, guys like that, Andrew Luck, if we're going to go back 13 years ago. But I mean, I still think both those guys can turn out to be really good players. The wide receiver class, I think it's because we've just been spoiled here recently, but it's way down than it usually is, which is pretty unfortunate, because if you look at team needs, almost every single team has a wide receiver on that list, meaning they could use an alpha, or they could use a wide receiver 2 or 3 to shape out the roster, which this draft should be good for, but not for those seeking a true dominant high-end pick like a Jamar Chase or someone like that. And then, but I do think the defensive line in this class, that's its strength. And top to bottom, like in the top 10, there's going to be probably a couple really strong edge rushers and interior linemen who are going to be fantastic. Who are going to be in the league for several years, dominating. But the depth is also really good on the D line too. And that is great for everybody because it doesn't matter how good you are, the defensive line, especially edge rushers, you can never have enough good pass rushers. Never. Like you could have
Yeah.
great rushers on both sides, but you could always use another one. It's always good to load up. Guys can get injury prone and they need rest. So if you could put like a guy in there for third down, that's huge. So yeah, that's what's going to be the most entertaining part of this draft for me is when those edge rushers are available to pick. Our team's going to pass on them because they know the depth's so good later, or are they going to say, okay, this guy's just too dominant. We can't let him slide anymore.
Yeah, definitely. It's not very top heavy like we saw last year, but I would say it's still pretty deep, and the later rounds could still be interesting to see what teams do in those later rounds. Even like you mentioned, the edge rushers like down farther down the list in the prospects. Texas A&M's Nick Scorton, I mean, is a guy that's probably not going to be even really a first round draft pick, but we could see him in later rounds, and that just kind of shows you the depth of the edge rushers and the defensive line. For me, I know obviously we've heard a lot that the first pick in the draft's most likely going to be Cam Ward to the Tennessee Titans. Do you see that as a good fit? Obviously, it's more of like a done deal. For me, the draft truly starts at number 2. But what do you think of Tennessee getting Cam Ward at number 1? Obviously, not the top prospect in the draft, but kind of just as far as a team need is exactly what they need.
Yeah, I would assume they probably kicked around the idea and maybe even shopped a trade for that number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
But when you're a team that has gone through Will Levis the last 2 years and a bit of Mason Rudolph, I mean, you might as well go for the number 1 overall quarterback, assuming that he's a top prospect, and of course he is. Yeah, I expect Cam Ward to be really good. The question is he going to be a Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence kind of first overall pick that can put up good numbers and win you a few games, but you never expect them to do much come December in the postseason? Or will he end up more like a Joe Burrow type first overall pick, or Stroud? I know he was second overall, but someone like that who is dominant. I can't make a definitive decision on that right now, but I do think it will elevate the Titans, and it helps that they're in a weak division.
Right.
So, and they're also a team that their defense was pretty underrated last year. Their offense was horrendous, which is obviously why they ended up with the first overall pick. But yeah, they had a pretty decent defense last year. So, quarterback's what you need. They don't really have many weapons at the moment, but yeah, you got to get the quarterback right before you can take that leap in the AFC. And I think Ward should provide that.
Definitely. And so looking at number 2 with the Cleveland Browns, for me, this draft pick could affect most of the top 10, whoever Cleveland decides to go with. Which top prospect does Cleveland pick, or, do they go Shedeur Sanders? I've seen different mock drafts where you see it with Shedeur Sanders, and that kind of affects what New York, Chicago, Las Vegas, New England, who they would go with as far as their draft pick. I've also seen Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, maybe going more towards the top prospect route rather than the quarterback route. What do you think with Cleveland at number 2? I feel like that's a very crucial pick and kind of affects what comes after.
I predict they will pass on Sanders. I just don't know if they want the baggage that comes with him at this moment when you already have a guy with a lot of baggage already at the quarterback position, and that roster needs so much more than just a quarterback to get competitive. I have it between Hunter and Abdul Carter. I'm pretty confident in this, and I'm also confident that that's going to be the second and third pick. I think the Giants will also pass on Sanders. A month ago, I would have said no, but when they made that awful Russell Wilson signing, then I feel like they're content with just running it like the way it is this year, and then hopefully getting a top pick next year. Yeah, I really don't know. I would assume, gun to head, I think I'd go Travis Hunter is what the Browns are going to do, because I don't know if they're going to actually play him wide receiver and corner, but they could use both, especially wide receiver. Jerry Judy's the only receiver I think I can name that that was relevant last year for the Browns. Even though I think Hunter would be better at cornerback, I do think he's a better cornerback prospect. But I think the Browns could use that. And although I will say they're probably thinking about how fun it would be to have Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter on the line at the same time.
That's
Teams have
kind
done
of
that.
what I'm thinking.
Teams have done that in the past where they have a strength, but what if we double up that strength? And especially if that strength's edge rusher, because that's arguably the most important position on the defense. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they took Carter, but my prediction is they will go Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I agree that they won't that they will pass on Shedeur. I think you can't pass up a prospect like Hunter or Carter. You can't really go wrong either way. But I definitely see them going for a quarterback in a later round, maybe like if Jackson Dart were to fall to the second round, he's kind of teetering on into the first, beginning of the second. Colin McCord, Will Howard, Jalen Milroe, any of those guys that they could develop. Obviously, they're going to have Joe Flacco. They're going to go wacko for Flacco again this season, bringing him back, see if he can recreate some of that magic. But you mentioned Travis Hunter and playing both sides of the ball, and Cleveland possibly not wanting to do that with him. What do you think about him playing both corner and wide receiver? Could it work? Obviously, there's an argument for both sides of this scenario. What do you think?
I think if you're the Browns, it's worth a shot just because you got to give yourself some hope for the future. But I don't think it's sustainable in the NFL. I'm rooting for it to work because that would be awesome. That would be one of the best stories you could have. Someone dominating both college and NFL on both sides. But I just don't think it'll work. The guys are just much faster in the NFL than college, much bigger. So I can imagine trying to lock down Justin Jefferson one possession, then you're going to the very next possession. You're going to line up as wide receiver on a crucial third down. So it's just hard to picture in the NFL. So I don't think it'll work, but I'm rooting for it too.
It would have to be certain packages, I think, using him at wide receiver. I would assume whoever gets him would use him primarily at corner. I think it's just a bigger need amongst most of the teams in the league. But they could still throw him in certain packages, maybe around the goal line, or throw him in at the slot on certain packages. But I could see it working, just maybe not at the extent in which Travis wants to be used as a wide receiver. But I think his strengths lie more into the corner position and just what teams need at this moment. What are some of the draft picks that you're going to be looking at the most, that seem the most intriguing to you, and who they should pick? You got like a couple in your head, maybe farther down in the first round, or maybe in that top 10?
So I think the top 4, assuming Sanders falls, and I think it's going to happen, I think the top 4 is pretty set just because the Patriots badly needed offensive tackle, and I think they'll just go with Will Campbell there from LSU. I think that 5th pick with the Jaguars, though, is really, really interesting because they're in a spot right now where they supposedly have a franchise quarterback who supposedly should be in his prime, but he hasn't lived up to his potential in the NFL, and they have lots of holes. They could go a few different routes here. I've seen several mock drafts having Mason Graham, the D lineman from Michigan, going there, and they could definitely use an interior defensive lineman there. They lost Evan Ingram in the offseason, and off the top of your head, can you name any Jaguars tight end on their current roster?
I could go back into the past and say like Mercedes Lewis, but
no, I'm not counting that. Yeah, no, it's a Benton Strange, and he actually did catch some decent amount of passes last year, but he's you can't go into the you can't go into the season with that sort of tight end room. Now they could go pick one up in the second round, that'd be fine too. But when you have two really intriguing prospects at tight end, and Tyler Warren from Penn State and Colson Loveland from Michigan, it'd be hard to pass up. I know fifth is kind of high for a tight end. We saw it early, hasn't worked out when the Falcons took Kyle Pitts a few years ago with the fourth overall pick.
That's a little different. I feel like these two guys feel more in line with some of the modern tight ends that we've seen. I've seen a lot of comparisons of Colston Loveland to George Kittle, and then Tyler Warren to more of a Travis Kelce type. So I definitely think they'll both work.
Yeah. I do. I also think that both will work. It's just, will a team do that with the fifth pick is the question.
Well, if one will, it's going to be Jacksonville.
Yeah. And the other thing, I mean, the pick right after that with the Raiders, that's interesting because I don't know if I mean, they signed Geno, so you think that they'll probably just ride with him for this year. But if Sanders falls, would they take him? That's a question. I've seen people put Ashton Genty from Boise State in that. I think that could work. Could they go defense? Let's say I'm wrong and Abdul Carter falls just because one of those top two teams takes Shedeur. One of either the Browns or the Giants take Shedeur. Would they go with Abdul and pair him with Max Crosby? That would be pretty terrifying. So yeah, the Jaguars and Raiders could go any different direction, I think, and you could make an argument for why that was the right move, and then that could change the rest of the draft depending on what they pick.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned that number 2 pick from Cleveland. That's really where the draft starts, because once that pick goes through, that affects a lot of the picks through the first top 10, I would say. So yeah, definitely the Raiders pick is one that I'm looking for. It'll all depend on what happens in those first few picks ahead of them. But they could go many different ways. I kind of like the Ashton Genty. I just don't know if picking a running back that high in the draft when you have a pretty deep running back class that's coming in with the likes of Quinshon Judkins, Trevion Henderson, Omarion Hampton, and a bunch of other guys. Is Scatabo in? Did he declare? Yeah. So we've got plenty of running back talent coming in. So that leads me into my next question is, how far will Ashton Genty fall? I mean, he could potentially be a top 10 pick. He could potentially be at the end of the first round. Where do you think the best fit for him is, and where he'll end up?
I think he's going to go top 10. I just think one of those teams will really, really want him. 10th pick with the Bears, I could easily see that happening, and that would be awesome. I know they have DeAndre Swift, but the way he played last year wasn't really running back one material, I felt like. But yeah, if you put Ashton Genty in that offense, and since the Bears just hired Ben Johnson as their coach, an offensive guy, you would think more than likely they'll do something with the O-line, even though they did address that free agency, or they would go to some skill position and to help Caleb Williams out. And I think if Genty goes down that far and the Bears aren't in love with anybody else, I could easily see them taking Genty there.
Now, I know that growing up, you were a Colts fan through and through. What do you think they're going to do with their pick in this first round? What's their biggest team need right now?
They are in the exact same boat as the Jaguars. When I talked to you about the tight ends just a few minutes ago, because they have nobody at the tight end position. Mo Alley Cox is their only tight end, and he's a good tight end 3. Like he's a good blocker and can make a catch here and there, but he cannot be tight end 1. Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if both the tight ends get picked before the Colts pick at 14. So I would imagine they will go tight end because, I mean, yeah, they have some holes, but if you looked at every position on the roster, they have at least one guy who's decent tight end, they have nobody who's decent. They haven't addressed
Right.
it free agency, which makes me think that's what they're leaning towards. But and yeah, I'm still a Colts fan. I would be happy with either Warren or Loveland. But there are a couple defensive players that are intriguing that if for some reason they fell because people wanted to go offense, then because remember that's what happened last year. Except that's what happened last year. Remember there was no defensive player picked until the 15th pick.
Right.
And that was the Colts. That was the Colts' pick. Now that's obviously not going to happen this year because there's some.
You're not going to have 6 quarterbacks taken with the first.
You're not going to have 6 quarterbacks
13,
taken,
14.
and there's some pretty surefire defensive players who are going top 5.
Right.
But it can't happen but much fewer defensive players get taken than people have mocked in the first 14 picks, and a team like the Colts or the Dolphins around that area could be like, well, we can't pass up on this guy. I mean, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick. So, yeah, it'll be interesting for teams in that area.
Definitely. And one team that's close to that Colts pick are my Cincinnati Bengals, who are loaded on the offensive end. So we were able to sign Higgins and Jamar Chase back to some contracts there. So we've got all our weapons that we need. Definitely need to bolster up on the defensive side. Trey Hendrickson needs some help on that side of the ball. He was phenomenal last year, but the defense altogether was piss poor. It was pretty bad. So I could see them maybe doubling down and getting another defensive lineman, maybe a corner. I don't know what corner they could get. I don't know that Will Johnson would be someone that would fall to them at that pick, but there's a possibility.
Good, yeah.
But I also think a good pick would be an offensive lineman. We've seen in the past few years, Joe Burrow's offensive line has been some of the worst in the league, and he's done a lot with that. So that could be a reason for the Bengals organization to not go offensive line and just let Burrow work his magic that he always has with a shitty offensive line. He's taken one to the Super Bowl before, so that'll be an interesting pick for me too at number 17. But the last couple of picks I wanted to look at were the ones that in the draft or in the first round. The Chiefs and the Eagles, our Super Bowl matchup from last year. They've had some pieces leave. Obviously, we've seen some defensive linemen for the Eagles head out of town, and then with the Chiefs already a middling offensive line to protect Patrick Mahomes. What moves could they make in this draft? What prospects could they go after in this first round that could help with their lines? Because that's one of the main reasons why they were so dominant during the regular season, what got them to the Super Bowl. Can they get some of that back in the draft, or is this something that they're going to have to just develop in-house?
Yeah, I trust the Eagles drafting defensive players based off how it's gone here recently. And that's what they need to address, in my opinion, because they've had a few guys leave on that side of the ball. They got some big paydays. I've said this before, but that's what happens when you're the champs. That's the punishment of being the champ is you're going to lose guys to get big paydays to lesser teams. But they're such a well-run organization with Howie Roseman. So I think they're going to find somebody to plug along the edge. The Chiefs, that's interesting. I do think the offensive line is pretty decent in this draft. So I do think they will get somebody. Looking at prospects in that area. Yeah, kind of like Zabel from North Dakota State, a big 6'6", 312.
There you go.
Interior. That's someone like that. Defensively, they could also address that too. We saw that in the. I know offense was most of their problems, but the Eagles definitely didn't have too much difficulty moving it up and down the field on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So I think they could easily bolster their secondary, and I'd be fine with that if I was the Chiefs. So those late round picks are interesting always for the Super Bowl champions, because remember last year was when the Bills made that trade with the Chiefs for the Chiefs to get Worthy. So
Yeah.
And still puzzles me to this day why the Bills would do that. But yeah, NBA. It's another difference between the drafts. NBA, I feel like once you get out of the lottery, it's just not as interesting. You
No.
can because the chances of those guys turning into superstars, not none, but it's slim. Uh, but the NFL, yeah, and there's always interesting trades that can be made at the end if a contender really loves the guy who's fallen or something. So yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm gonna be up late that night seeing what the Chiefs and Eagles do.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Looking at, obviously, we're going to see a lot of top prospects come out of that first round. What are some of the guys you're going to be looking at post round one as maybe a sleeper pick that may have an immediate impact and be a bit of a steal in this draft in the later rounds? Who's maybe a couple guys that you have on your mind?
So when I ever get asked this question, I'm no guy who just studies tape all the time to find like, oh, this guy's really sneaky and stuff like
Right,
that. So
right.
what I like to do for this is name you players who were really popular just a few months ago in college football, but haven't been talked about for a while because they're not on the top of any draft boards. But you will probably hear their name sometime in the NFL season just because when you have that much production in college, you're probably going to play in the NFL at some point. So a few guys I've listed, like your guy from Ohio State, Jack Sawyer. I mean, he's not anywhere close to a first round pick. You could argue second round, but I mean, a veteran guy from Ohio State. I could easily see him having a nice, productive career. Um, Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Texas. I know he's kind of been going through some issues here lately, but he's made some big catches in his time at Texas.
Yeah.
Trevor Etienne, running back from Georgia. And then we talked about him earlier. You mentioned him earlier, Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. I don't know where he was going to be drafted. I know he's around fourth round pick projection right now. I don't know if he was going to be undrafted or like late, but I'm sure that college football playoff performance definitely raised his stock some. And another guy, seventh round pick, Donovan Edwards, running back Michigan. He wasn't bad in college, so I could see him being a decent running back too for a team someday. And then you got your quarterbacks too. This is one of the most interesting quarterback classes because there's no elite quarterbacks like I mentioned earlier. There's some great quarterbacks at the top, but this might be like one of the strongest middle of the pack backup quarterback classes ever because you got Quinn Ewers, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, Riley Leonard. All those guys have played in big games. All those guys have delivered at times in big games. And if you could count on them as a backup quarterback, hey, like our guy just went down. Could you come in here and hold the fort down for the rest of the game? And I could easily see one of those guys developing. Not all of them, obviously, but one of them could end up being a decent starting quarterback in the future in the NFL. We have those almost every year. So
Yeah.
middle of the round guy who ends up good. I don't know who that will be. Leaning towards Quinn Ewers, even though I know he's really inconsistent towards the end of college, but and I could be dead wrong on this, but yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what teams take them too.
Yeah. Do you think we'll get a third quarterback in the first round? Do you think a Jackson Dart will slip in?
I so I don't know why, but so I keep seeing the Steelers taking Dart like with the
Oh
21st pick,
no.
and I'm getting extreme Kenny Pickett vibes with
Oh
that.
no.
You know, I know they're nothing alike. I know they're nothing alike, but it's like yeah, Steelers kind of just did that. You know, there really weren't any projected first round QB prospects in that draft, and they kind of reached for one and that
Yeah.
20th pick. So, I mean, there's not too many teams and there hardly ever is in the late first round that needs a quarterback. So it would be an exception like the Steelers reaching on him or someone trading up from the second round to take him.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick, I bet the Browns or Giants will take him with their second round pick when they pass on Sanders, they'll still try to get arguably QB3 in the class. So that's what I think.
Awesome. Well, it should be a really fun draft. I know, like, every year this is one of the bigger days in the NFL season, or NFL off season. There's always a big celebration with the NFL draft, and it seems like with NBA drafts and MLB drafts, there's like no one there. So this should be an exciting one, even though it may not be as stacked heavy at the top of the draft order. But I want to do something fun in the spirit of the draft and play a little what if scenario. This is one of the bigger ones, one of the more recent ones that we all know about. And the question here is, what if the San Francisco 49ers and the Chicago Bears, for that matter, hadn't passed on Aaron Rodgers in the 2005 NFL draft? This is a really fun one because Aaron Rodgers actually slid to pick number 24 to the Green Bay Packers. In that year, San Francisco did have the number one pick. They ended up picking Alex Smith, who is almost like a lookalike of Aaron Rodgers. So maybe they just couldn't tell which one was which and ended up picking the wrong one. But how different would the careers of Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers be if they had really just switched places there, and what Aaron Rodgers could have done in San Francisco or Chicago?
So, looking back at Alex Smith's tenure with San Francisco, he didn't play much his rookie year, but when he did finally get in, it went 7-9, 5-11, and then one year he was hurt all year, and they went 8-8, 6-10, and you're thinking, are they really keeping him around? They did, and then they went 13-3 and went to overtime in the NFC Championship game. So the thing is, though, don't forget, Rodgers sat 3 years behind Brett Favre, and we all knew he was talented, but they still had Brett Favre, who was in decline, and then he led them to the NFC Championship game, and they lost in overtime also, ironically. Both of those losses were to the Giants. 49ers and Packers both lost to the Giants in overtime in the NFC Championship game, and that was also the last time both their starting quarterbacks played for them. Yeah, because Favre went to the Jets the next year, and then the Kaepernick became the 49ers quarterback. Well, actually, not. Smith still played some, but it was their last playoff game. So I really don't know, because I think with Rodgers, he would have played earlier, obviously, than he would have with the Packers if he would have went to San Francisco. Question is, would he have had a worse career because of that? Like, did those 3 years behind Brett Favre help him? I know he has some of the most unique talent the NFL's ever seen. You can't teach that. So I almost think his career would have went kind of like Alex Smith's, except his peak of like leading in the NFC Championship would have come 2 years earlier. So I still think, San Francisco wasn't anything special during that time. They had a young Frank Gore and Vernon Davis and an okay defense. That was during the Mike Singletary coaching days. But I don't think there's any guarantee that he would have repeated his Green Bay success with San Francisco, just because of he wouldn't have had that extra time learning under Favre. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he would have come right in, and under a new system, he would have been pretty dominant.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see Brett Favre's career had Green Bay not had someone right behind him, kind of grooming him for that next position. Would he have gone to the Jets? Would he have gone to the Vikings? Would he have stayed with Green Bay? I think a real interesting study in this is what the Bears could have been like with Aaron Rodgers in Chicago, a franchise that has never truly had a star at the quarterback position. Anytime they've been successful, it's been because of their defense, because of their running game, and just playing smash mouth football. But to have someone as talented as Aaron Rodgers at the helm would have been really fun to see. Imagine that Super Bowl between the Bears and the Colts. That could have possibly been that one championship that Manning got in Indianapolis. He would have never had, and we would have been talking about him as having only one Super Bowl and that be in Denver, and maybe possibly could have been even more successful for Rodgers in Chicago. But yeah, it's a fun what if scenario to see what would have happened if either of those teams, because we know as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, he grew up in California. He was a California kid. He loved the San Francisco 49ers growing up. I've read his book on Connor did a biography on him. It was pretty cool just learning about him in his younger years and always wanting to be Joe Montana. And we know how talented he was in the league. He was really good. He's a Hall of Famer, no doubt. But it would have been really cool to see what he would have been like in San Francisco or Chicago.
Yeah, with Chicago, I think he would have had a better. I know Chicago has been cursed with bad quarterback play, so like there's an argument that they could have had Mahomes or Brady, and Mahomes and Brady would suck on the Bears just because the Bears are cursed at QB. But Rodgers would have been in a better situation because that would have been Rodgers' second year if they assume that they go to the Super Bowl.
And that defense, Urlacher,
the defense was incredible. They were doing that with Kyle Orton and Rex Grossman as their QBs. So obviously Rodgers wouldn't be as good as he was in his prime, but he would still be, or second year Aaron Rodgers would still be much better than those two guys.
Yeah.
So and then they had a couple down years after that. But then remember they were in the NFC Championship game a couple years later when they had arguably we'll see what jury's out on Caleb Williams, obviously, but arguably the best quarterback they've had in the last several decades has been Jay Cutler. And we saw what they did with that. They went to the NFC Championship game. Like it was a good team, a good defense, but they had competent quarterback play. They were able to make it to hosting the NFC title game, and they ironically lost to Aaron Rodgers. But I think Rodgers to Chicago is the interesting one, especially because they're in the same division and how much he's tormented them over the last decade and a half.
Definitely. Well, we'll be looking at this draft, and maybe we'll see someone like Rodgers who slips. Maybe Shedeur falls to number 9 with New Orleans. There's thoughts that he could slip to the Saints at number 9, and that could be really cool to see him teamed up with the head coach Kellen Moore, because we know how good he is on the offensive side. So we'll be looking at that. It should be a really fun draft. It'll be this Thursday. Will be day 1 of the draft. That's, I assume, is just like the first round. Isn't that how they usually do it for just the first day? It's just the first round. But yeah, should be a lot of fun. So as we move on here, let's look at the NBA playoffs. We have completed the play-in tournament. Honestly, I don't know why we have a play-in tournament. I don't know why 9 and 10 seeds. I don't know why basically 2/3 of the league make it to the playoffs pretty much. I know play-in's not considered playoffs, but it kind of makes the 82-game season even worse to watch. But
well, I'm going to tie this to the NFL real quick, and then we'll go right back to the NBA. But this is why I'm against the changing the playoff format for division winners, because the reason the play-in's happening in the NBA is because something unusual happened one year, and they're like, you know what, a play-in would have fixed this. Even though what happened was unusual, like that rarely happens. That's why, and same with the NFL, if they change it to like where division winners don't get home games, I feel like that's not the thing to do, because it was different last year when one division was so dominant in the regular season. That doesn't happen most years, so there's no reason to change it because it's one instance. But as for the play-in tourney itself, none of the games were too interesting. The Grizzlies Warriors game, almost any game with the Warriors is going to be intriguing, and certainly that one was. But yeah, how much did Curry and Butler combine for in that one?
75 points.
Yeah. So it's hard to beat that, especially at San Francisco. So, but yeah, so I wasn't complaining about the play-in for that game, because that game was actually pretty intriguing.
Yeah, and
the Hawks Heat game, that was also good. That one did go into overtime, and
that was all right.
Davion Mitchell lived up to his hype of what I thought he was going to be whenever he came out of Baylor. But other than that, it was pretty forgettable.
Yeah, and for me, even the Hawks Heat game, it feels irrelevant because
We know
those
what's going
teams
to
aren't
happen.
going. Yeah, we know what's going to happen to those teams. But one question surrounding the Hawks now is the Trae Young experiment over in Atlanta? I mean, we're going on how many seasons now with him in Atlanta, and it just has not worked. Obviously, we know he chucks up a lot of long 3-pointers, thinking he's Curry. He makes a lot, but he also misses a lot, and he doesn't give much effort on the defensive end. He was a name that was thrown around with the Lakers come this past trade deadline. I could see him being shipped out of Atlanta. I don't think you can build a winning team around Trae Young.
Yeah, I think they should trade him. From what I heard, though, they have shopped him in the past. Like whenever last year when they dealt DeJounte Murray, like they were kind of listening for offers for both of them because they're planning on keeping one, and the market on Trae Young just really wasn't as appealing. So that's why they shipped off DeJounte Murray. But yeah, that weird post-COVID season where the Hawks made the Eastern Conference Finals, yeah, that kind of set unreasonable expectations for what the Trae Young era was going to be like. Um, they've tried things. Yeah, like I said, they tried with pairing DeJounte Murray with him, and that didn't work. But I think at this point, yeah, you are stuck in mediocrity with him, and it's not like Miami Heat mediocrity where you could still somehow make the finals, despite how poor you play in the regular season. But yeah, if they want to move on as a franchise, like with actual success, they need to shop him around. And I mean, they have intriguing young pieces. They got the first pick from last year, Zachary Ricochet. Dyson Daniels really improved this year after coming from the Pelicans. Jalen Johnson's a good player. So if I were the Hawks, yeah, I would trade Trae Young and play those guys some more. You're not going to have a good record. You're probably going to have pretty good lottery odds, and then get a really good player in the draft next year. And then along with these young guys now, you could label them as veterans. You could have an intriguing team in 2 years. Plus the Trae Young trade capital, whatever you get out of that, picks or players, you never know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's get out of the play-in. That's passed. That's gone. We're now in the first round. We got a game going on right now, I believe, but we did have game ones for each of the series happen over this past weekend. Not going to get into every game. We had some blowouts. Obviously, top 2 seeds took care of business. OKC actually throttling the Memphis Grizzlies, going taking it to the largest margin of victory in a playoff series with 51. They actually absolutely took care of business with Memphis. I don't really see Memphis. I can't take them seriously. Not with John Morant in this team. It's a lot. It's similar to the Trae Young situation. I can't take this team seriously. But we did have some really good games this weekend.
I was just going to say quickly for the Thunder Grizzlies game, I think the line for that was like 14 and a half. And I didn't bet it, but looking at them, like, you know what? The Grizzlies have just played a game 2 days ago, and now they have to go to Oklahoma City.
Right.
They're probably going to lose by 20 or so. I mean, this is an easy bet on the Thunder. No, I didn't anticipate them losing 131 to 80, and Desmond Bain having a minus 51 for plus minus. But yeah, and just one other quick thing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he only had 15 points in that game, and they still beat the Grizzlies by 51. So that just shows you how deep
it's a scary team.
Yeah, that is a scary team.
But yeah, it had some notable games over this past weekend. One of the best games I think in round one that we've had was the Clippers and Nuggets game. Came down to the wire, went to overtime. Probably the best game of round one so far. Tell me a little bit about what you saw in that game. Russell Westbrook was actually a huge piece in getting them that victory. Came down to a 2-point victory.
Yeah, I had to make sure I wasn't. I had to make sure I wasn't going to miss the bus to go to school the next day because I thought I was back in 2017 watching James Harden and Russell Westbrook play elite basketball and like leading their teams head to head. That was incredible. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Westbrook was Westbrook, but there was more good Westbrook than bad Westbrook this time.
Right.
Yeah, he had some clutch shots, made some good defensive plays. Yeah, he had the horrible last possession that sent the game into overtime. But other than that, yeah, he was incredible for his standards of late. I mean, he was a key part in their victory. And then, yeah, James Harden. I mean, he had 32 points and 11 assists, and like did not play anything like typical playoff Harden, where his numbers go down. Like that was incredible. And I'm glad we had one good game because it was pretty disappointing basketball if you think about it. All weekend. You could tell just watching them play, though, that it's just a completely different type of basketball. Like,
Right,
it's definitely more
right.
intriguing to watch in the regular season. But I was surprised how, yeah, none of the games were close towards the end except that one. Some were close in the fourth quarter, but then the more experienced team obviously pulled away at the end. And I mean, that's playoff basketball for you.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but game one does not define a whole series at all. Um, so yeah, none of these series are nowhere near over. Probably the Thunder Grizzlies series is over. But I'm interested to see how some of these series go. I know as we're recording this, the Pistons and Knicks are playing right now, and I anticipate. I didn't at first. I didn't anticipate that series to be very good, but the way the Pistons played for 3 quarters, I thought, you know what, they could put up a fight. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Should be a fun series there. I think
yeah.
a couple hard-nosed teams with Detroit and New York. Um, One of the most surprising outcomes in this first game was the Minnesota Timberwolves and the LA Lakers. The Lakers getting, just ran out of the building in this game. It didn't look like they put up much of a fight. Luka had a good game. He ended up with 37 points. I didn't think he played terribly. I didn't think he was as much of a liability as he usually is on the defensive side. But yeah, awful games from Austin Reeves. LeBron didn't seem like he was that aggressive earlier on. It took him till late in that game to really start getting aggressive. But this was a bit of a worry that we mentioned before, and why I don't think the Clippers are in a bad situation right now, losing game one to Denver. I don't think it should be an overreaction. I don't want to underreact to this Lakers loss. I don't want to just brush this one off because this looks a little bit more serious, um, obviously, than the Clippers loss because of just how bad they lost in this one.
Yeah, the issues in the paint are what I've been saying is not good for the Lakers in this matchup. And you can look at the stats and say, well, yeah, but it was the 3-point shooting that beat the Lakers so badly. And yeah, I mean, Naz Reid went 6 for 9. Yeah, I wrote all these down just because of how crazy these percentages are. Naz Reid 6 for 9 from three. Julius Randle 4 of 6. Jaden McDaniels 3 of 3. Mike Conley 2 of 3, and Anthony Edwards 4 of 9. All of those except Edwards's were over 50%, and Edwards is 4 for 9, still really good. I mean, they shot incredibly, but almost all their threes were wide open because the Lakers they're so focused on the paint because they know they're undersized there
Right.
that they're leaving these guys wide open. Now, is that kind of shooting sustainable? That's the question going forward. I don't. If it is, then it's the Lakers might as well pack their bags. But I don't think it will be for every game. I think there might be another game or two where the Timberwolves are going to make a lot of threes, and the Lakers will need to make some sort of adjustments. But yeah, most of the national media was picking the Lakers to win this, and I I did too, but I did say, yeah, it's definitive. I said, yeah, there's some matchup issues here, and they were pretty evident in game one.
Definitely. And you would hope that JJ Redick would, make the adjustments needed. He's been a terrific coach all season long. I think it's been one of the best pickups as far as a coaching job. Um, I will say the one thing about the Timberwolves is look at that stat line for Julius Randle, 7 turnovers. This is definitely playoff Julius Randle coming into play. You're getting the good and the bad from him. The Lakers just going to need to reclaim home court advantage in this one after falling in the first game. One game that was interesting for me was the Houston Rockets Golden State Warriors. I was surprised to know that the Warriors were favored in this series. I just would have assumed as a 2 seed, uh, the Rockets would have been favored, maybe by a small margin. But you could tell the Warriors they're the best defense in the league. They have been all year. The Rockets are also a really good team, and I think a really good defensive team. And you saw both of those things play out. I think if you are the Warriors, you'll definitely take holding the Rockets to 85. On the flip side, the Rockets did a lot of good things as well on defense and held them to below 100 points. So I think it, looking forward in this series, if the Rockets need some sort of offense, they need Jalen Green to step it up. He has not been there for them. Obviously, Amen Thompson, it's his first playoff. I cut him a little bit of slack here. But Sengun for them, he's so much fun to watch. Down low, it seems like everything's going to go in for him. He's got these nice little baby hooks that he gets over the smaller defenders, and should be a really fun series. What are your thoughts on the Warriors Rockets after Game 1?
Yeah, it's not Warriors Rockets from 5 years ago. That's for sure. It's a defensive battle. It's a defensive battle, and yeah, you're right. Sengun was really good. Going into it, I would assume, and this is how I am about every series, the veterans are just going to play better than the newcomers to the playoffs at first. And you kind of saw that because I thought Steven Adams on the Rockets was pretty good. He's a longtime veteran.
Yeah.
But all their younger guys were pretty poor. I mean, but yeah, it's Game 1. You're playing the Warriors, playing Curry and Butler, so you gotta it's a 7-game series. But I was also surprised how poor Fred VanVleet played, though, because I mean, he was a key contributor to that 2019 Raptors team, and he shot horribly. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Rockets should have some positives to take away because 95-85. That's not. I mean, you are in it. If you hold a team to 95, you're definitely in the game, no matter how few you score, because that's hard to do in the NBA.
Yeah,
especially with a team like has Steph Curry on it.
Yeah, and like you're not going to be able to stop Curry and Butler. Like they're going to put up a ton of points. Curry ended with 31, Butler with 25, but you held the rest of the team, and I think that's a lot of what the Lakers should be doing. Let Ant get his points, but then just hold off the rest of the team. One guy can't beat you, and so the Rockets had the Warriors right where they want them, and if they just had a little bit more scoring, if they could get into their sets and find good open shots, they'd be able to really take some games in this series. And a lot of the discussion is now like, where's Kevin Durant going to go? And the Rockets seem to be that number one rumored option. And imagine him on the squad, just being that release valve when they need a bucket. He'd be there for him, and this would be a really scary team with him on there.
Yeah, if he doesn't ruin the chemistry or coach or whatever, like seems to have been a few years. Oh yeah, it'd be a dream fit. Absolute dream fit. All these young guys surrounded with a veteran who can give you a bucket. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Just one more series briefly want to talk about is the Bucks Pacers. Giannis scoring 36 points, but only 1 assist. Now I'm just gonna say if that trend continues, he's gonna want out. I mean, he pretty much carried that team to even being within striking distance, even though they never really were. I mean, if he wasn't out there, that would have been the Grizzlies probably would have put up a better fight against the Thunder than the Bucks would have put up against the Pacers. But yeah, I mean, Dame's likely to come back though, either tomorrow or Game 3, so that'll make it a little more intriguing. But yeah, you got to have teammates step up. Kyle Kuzma can't put a 0.00000 stat line again. That's inexcusable.
Yeah. Definitely, and I think the Pacers are going to pretty much handle the Bucks in this series. I don't see the Lillard addition being too much of a difference in this series. He's not at 100%, and he's not the same player. I don't think that he was in Portland, but this is definitely not the same Bucks team from just a few years ago that was very dominant during the COVID era of the NBA. It's the team that doesn't have Drew Holiday anymore. This doesn't have Chris Middleton anymore. Giannis doesn't have much help. And you're right, he could be wanting out after a game like that. But one note on the Pacers, I'm always impressed with them, but they're always so under the radar in terms of the NBA and what teams are being looked at for contenders. Um, the Pacers are never going to have the top player on the court. They're never going to have the best player on the court in any series that they're in. But I think they probably have the best team most series outside of if they face a Boston. I would even say they match up pretty well with Cleveland. There's just a lot of great pieces on this team from Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, Nemhard, Nesmith, even on their bench. It's a very deep team.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been impressed. They're well coached. Rick Carlisle is a championship winning coach. I think this is a really good era for Pacers basketball. Whether they come out of this era with a championship or not, it's just it reminds me of the days of the Paul George teams and the even going farther back into the Reggie Miller teams.
Yeah, I think they match up well with anybody in the East, not named the Boston Celtics.
Right.
Yeah, if they're gonna have any chance to make the finals here in the next couple of years, they're gonna need someone else to take out the Celtics. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Their depth is huge for them. Like they can play so many guys, and yeah, it's weird that they don't get more attention. I kind of understood 10 years ago the Paul George, David West, Roy Hibbert era that they didn't get as much attention because they're more of a defensive team, and that's just not as exciting. But I mean, lately, the past 2 years, the Pacers have been one of the best offensive teams in the league and just horrendous on defense, but they still win games. So, and usually offense is more fun to talk about and watch. So, yeah, you think that'd be talked about more, but they just haven't because they don't have a superstar. And I mean, that's just how it goes. But I think the Pacers maybe prefer flying under the radar.
Right.
And yeah, but as long as they have this core, they're always going to be in it.
Yeah, definitely. And the NBA playoffs, it's its own long season. We'll be checking back in each round, each week, giving you some more top stories from the playoffs. Let's move on to the MLB. Get a little bit of a weekly recap. Had a few top stories to talk about. Couple of them really recently. Yet as far as yesterday on Sunday. For the San Diego Padres, Luis Arraez, he was carted off the field after colliding with the Astros' Mauricio Dubon at first base. And I saw the replay of this. He was busting it down the line off a bunt. First baseman came up to field it as the second baseman came in behind him to cover first base. That's what you're supposed to do. I just have a problem with how he got the ball at first and decided to get that out. As a first baseman or even a second baseman who has to cover first, anytime you cover first, you do not get in the way of the base path. You get that foot on the bag and you get the hell out of the way. So I kind of blame Dubon in this sense of why this would have happened. I understand his momentum was moving him towards the bag into the path, but you've got to gather yourself there and not create a scary situation. Luckily, recent reports have said that he's conscious. He's able to move some of his extremities. That he is in concussion protocol, obviously, for this. But it's just a scary situation, and it was scary to see him just lying on the ground after that play happened. I don't know if you saw the replay on that at all.
No, I haven't got a chance to see it.
Yeah.
So that happened yesterday.
Yeah, it happened yesterday.
Okay,
Astros Padres. Just a scary scene there. Other news: Ronald Acuna Jr. Calling out his Braves manager Brian Snitker on X. There was a play at second where teammate Jared Kelenic was called out, and look at the replay of it. It looked like he wasn't giving it his all to second base, and there were some questions directed towards Snitker by the press about it. He said he didn't see it. Obviously, in game, you don't see all the plays happening as they happen. You're looking at the ball out in the outfield or whatnot. But it harkens back to a situation about 6 years ago or so that Acuna had a similar play where he was called out by Brian Snitker and then subsequently benched because of that. And so Acuna clapped back on X, saying, basically, if it were me, I would have been pulled out of the game. And about an hour later, it was taken down. But it just like makes the situation in Atlanta all the more worse. The way their season has gone this year with the Jurickson Profar suspension to now this, there's clearly more than just the on-field play that's wrong. There's some stuff going on in-house.
They've been playing better recently too. I mean, they really couldn't have played any worse with how they started, starting out at 1-7. But I mean, they've sort of leveled the ship. But when you see crap like this, you're like, never mind. It might not be fixable this year.
That pick of mine for World Series, it's looking worse and worse by the day. And once you get about a month into the season, you kind of understand who the haves and have-nots are, and it's not looking good for Atlanta. Finally, the last story I want to talk about is benches clearing in Pittsburgh on Wednesday. Pitcher for the Washington Nationals, Jorge Lopez, hit Brian Reynolds. It's a simple hit by pitch, took the base, and then the very next hitter, Andrew McCutchen, avoided a headshot basically from Lopez's pitch. Exchanged some words. Benches cleared. It really didn't turn into anything crazy. I was hoping for a fight. Didn't get to see one. There wasn't even much of a scuffle. It was just just guys talking.
That's why I haven't seen I guess that's why I haven't seen a replay of it.
Yeah, it didn't get as exciting as I was hoping it would when I saw the replay of it. But I think the funniest part about these situations is the guys from the bullpen running down from the outfield.
They always. That's okay. So I'm no baseball expert, but that just always makes me laugh and just gets confused. Why do they feel like they have to be involved in every little thing?
You got to take up arms for your teammates, but man, by the time you get down there, it's
I know. I guess that's what makes it funny is they're just so far away. Yeah. So by the time they get there, it's like, why did you even make the effort?
So, nothing really came of it, but it does make you wonder. A lot of times in baseball, this stuff happens in retaliation for a previous thing that happened. There were some stories and rumors about this was because both Reynolds and McCutchen homered off of Jorge Lopez last year. I don't think it goes back that far. The previous game, though, Pirates pitcher Mitch Keller actually hit Nationals shortstop Paul DeYoung in the face in the previous game. It was kind of a nasty situation there. But I would say it would relate more to that and in retaliation. But if I'm Jorge Lopez, you hit the one batter and you move on. You don't throw it into their guy's head. It starts to get a little dangerous at that point. I didn't like him calling Andrew McCutchen soft. As you saw in the replay, you could read his lips when they were exchanging words. But just kind of a dumb situation. If they were going to fight, they might as well have done it. Some more notable outcomes that happened this past week too. Some good news for the Braves, even though in a loss, their ace starter Spencer Strider made his debut and recorded his 500th strikeout in a 3-1 loss. He reached it in just 334 innings, becoming the fastest pitcher with at least 50% of his appearances coming as starts. So basically the fastest starter to reach that mark. Pretty cool there. The fastest actually to get to 500 is Aroldis Chapman. So fun fact, he did it in 292 innings. On, would this be Friday, the Cubs prevailed over the Arizona Diamondbacks in a 13-11 victory after 16 runs were scored in the 8th inning alone. I saw some replays of this one. The D-backs stormed back from being down 7-1, putting up a 10 spot. Ultimately, the Cubs were able to come back in the next half inning. Crazy game. Would have been an awesome game to be at. A lot of runs being scored, a lot of exciting play in that one. But on Sunday, we had the Cincinnati Reds take down the Baltimore Orioles 24-2.
I thought that was the Ravens versus the Bengals.
Right. As a couple of unexpected players for the Reds in Noelvi Marte and Austin Wynn combined for 13 RBIs. So that's really good for them as they get some help for guys like Spencer Steer and Ellie De La Cruz. Have some more of those guys produce for them. It was the most runs scored by Cincinnati in 26 years. And actually, Austin Wynn had a 6-hit game So really great day at the office for him. And just looking at some of the standings now, what if you have them pulled up now? What are some of the teams that are maybe surprising you, maybe disappointing you? Like what are some of the things standing out as we get closer to the end of the first month here?
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before, but it's just amazing how dominant the NL West is so far. Just
Yes.
other than the poor team in the Rocky Mountains, the the Padres, Dodgers, Giants, D-backs, none of them have reached double-digit losses yet. I mean, obviously, we knew the Dodgers are going to be really good this year, but I'm glad to see they're having some competition in their actual division. Like, don't want to see them running away with it because that just takes the intrigue out of the sport. But other than that, I mean, you mentioned it. I think the Cubs have had a pretty good year so far, considering I think they've had a pretty difficult start of the schedule, and yet
Yeah.
they're leading the NL Central. So credit to them. Holding down the fort so far because it's probably going to get lighter here eventually and be a team to watch and not just the Central, but potentially the NL.
Yeah, definitely. We've got both New York teams leading their respective divisions in the East. So hopefully, seeing both of those teams in the playoffs would be nice to have both of those markets, that the same market basically in the playoffs. The Cubs, obviously, yeah, they're having a great season. Padres leading the West. Dodgers have been a little up and down recently. We'll see if they're able to pick things back up, but I know for a team like that, they're focused on the playoffs and really nothing else. They're not looking. They'll make sure that they get into the playoffs, whether that's winning the division or getting in as a wild card team. But yeah, we'll keep looking at the standings and seeing some of the top stories and outcomes as we head on into this MLB season. To finish it off, we've got a pretty cool topic here in college football. I'll let you take it away here, Logan. What do we got here, man?
Yeah, so I saw this story earlier, and it's just anytime I keep seeing a headline about it for some reason, it's just the more frustrated I get. So we've already talked about these guys earlier in the podcast. So I talked about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. I think both are fantastic NFL prospects. You heard me say earlier that I think Hunter's going to go second overall, and I think he deserves it. And I hope he plays both wide receiver and DB in the NFL, even though I'm skeptical that that's even possible to do in the NFL from anybody. And Shedeur, I have no criticism against him. A lot of people have him, I won't say a lot, but some scouts have him falling out of the first round, and I don't see him falling out of the top 10. I think someone's going to, if he slides, someone's going to take him just because of all the skill he has. But over the past week, Colorado announced that they were going to retire both of their jerseys, and then they've already completed that process because they did it at the spring game. So now, their names are in Boulder, Colorado, up in the stadium. I don't recall what their exact stadium's called, but so their names are going to be there forever. And for me, retiring your jersey that's like the greatest possible accomplishment you could have team, like for your own team, like what you did for your team. So people are making the argument that they dug Colorado from the grave, dug them up from the grave. Yes, that is definitely true. Colorado was horrible 2 years ago. And yes, they made Colorado relevant. But is a 13-12 career record, 0 bowl wins, 1-7 in games against ranked opponents, where your only win was against a TCU team that finished the year 5-7. So if you can even count that as a ranked win, I mean, I still do, but there's an argument that you can't because that was the first game of the year, and TCU's never a top 25 team. And Travis won the Heisman. That's great. Shedeur never won any sort of award or anything. Yeah, to me, that's just not a resume for retiring a jersey, and especially retiring a jersey not even just a couple months after the season ended. Like a lot of these guys everywhere, when they get their jersey retired, it's several seasons later. Or if they're like really good, then maybe the next year, like at a football game or and then they have a whole ceremony at the game. But, I mean, this is just ridiculous. Rashad Salam, if anyone knows who that is, he won the Heisman back in 1994 with Colorado. So Travis Hunter was not the first Colorado Buffalo to win the Heisman Trophy. He did not have his jersey retired until 2017, and that may have happened because he tragically died in 2016. So they felt like it'd be the right thing to do to retire his jersey, which I have no problem with. That's the right thing to do. And then you take these guys who barely were above 500 and one won a Heisman, which is the same thing that Salam did, and then immediately put them on their stadium forever. Like people have been claiming like nepotism with Sanders and arguably Hunter. Hunter's kind of almost been like a son to Deion. And I've said, yeah, that's there, but it doesn't bother me because they're both talented. It's fun to watch. Like Travis Hunter, a guy who plays receiver, cornerback, that's so much fun to watch. Sanders makes incredible plays. He played behind a horrible offensive line, yet he still made every game they had exciting because he was so athletic. He could make incredible throws even when under pressure. But I can't get past this with nepotism. This is clear nepotism with Deion as coach, retiring these guys' jersey just a couple months after the season. Yeah, it bothers me a lot. I don't know why, because I'm a Colorado fan. I guess it's just the idea of retiring jerseys. And just one other thing. Colorado's had history in college football. Yeah, like they were down in the dumps, a couple of years ago, but I mean, they won a national title in 1990. They were really good in the 90s. And Salam's the only guy who's had his jersey retired from that time period. And that wasn't until 2017. So, yeah, it bothers me. But you can say whatever you want. You can disagree with me if you want. I just want to get that off my chest.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think how quickly it was done is
that might be the biggest thing. That might be my biggest issue.
Red flag there. Obviously, I would think that Deion had a hand in this. I think Hunter probably deserves it a little bit more than Shedeur does.
Absolutely.
Shedeur was a fantastic talent, but he didn't put up the type of resume that even Hunter did with the two-time All-American. He's one of only 5 players in Colorado Buffalo history that's done that. And obviously the Heisman Trophy is huge. So I think he deserves it, but maybe not this quickly.
No.
But
no one. I don't think anyone does.
No.
I don't know what.
For them to be the ones that had this done, it raises the eyebrows, definitely. But that will do it for us here. We had a fun little topic to end it for you. Again, NFL draft coming up this Thursday. More NBA playoffs going on. They're going on right now as we speak. So we'll be checking back in. Obviously, the baseball season just getting underway. We're not even a month in yet, and still a lot of things to take shape across this season. We'll be back next week with another episode of the K&L Sports Huddle. I'm Cage Kiplinger. That's Logan Hubert. We'll catch you next time.